Hello dear viewers, here is a new video that I will please you on my channel Manhwa Compilation. I hope you like my story and how I told it to you. The tale commences with a well-dressed gentleman igniting a cigarette. With a swift motion, he extracts his firearm and dispatches the man lying beside him on the floor with a single gunshot to the head. Gazing up at the moon, he remarks on its beauty in contrast to his grim deed. This enigmatic figure, bearing the moniker Haruto Hagami, is an assassin by profession. His somber contemplation turns to the life he leads, questioning when he can rid himself of this sordid occupation. A glance at his mobile device reveals a new mission, a stark reminder that he is not afforded the luxury of reflection. But what is it? The device displays task number 100, infiltrate the Forest of Diablo and eliminate Kokuryu Keima, the chairman of the Phoenix Society. Haruto ponders the identity of this individual and how it ties into his line of work. Fast forward 1 month, within the confines of an international penitentiary. Haruto is escorted by several guards to a designated spot where he takes a seat. He closes his eyes and immerses himself in the virtual realm of the game. In a world where capital punishment has been abolished, a game was devised to thin the overcrowded prison population. In this virtual world, prisoners engage in a relentless battle for survival. Swords clash, arrows find their mark, and some are consumed by molten lava. It's a fully immersive virtual battleground where prisoners scheme, betray, and negotiate for their lives. Pausing for a moment to strangle the Commonwealth, the red-haired boy contemplates a terrible game where he can take out as many weaker opponents as he wants. An unexpected presence startles him, and he releases his victim, inquiring if there are more foolish challengers. Before he can complete his sentence, his head is severed by an unseen assailant. The remaining prisoners cease their brawling and turn their attention to the mysterious executioner. Shocked whispers spread through their ranks as they contemplate the identity of this formidable figure. The Forest of Diablo game's most harrowing feature is that death in the game equals death in reality. The person responsible for the swift execution of the red-haired boy was not another player, but a creature from Chinese mythology. Behind the monstrous entity stands a girl named Jennifer, who never anticipated encountering such a terror when she agreed to participate, hoping for an early release from her 80-year sentence for fraud. Another inmate attempts to flee, screaming in terror. But the monster is swift in pursuit. Jennifer breathes a sigh of relief, believing herself saved, only to have her throat slit by an assailant who crept up from behind. Bewildered and gasping for breath, she drops her weapon, blood streaming from her wound. It begs the question, why do players, well aware of the deadly stakes, willingly partake in this gruesome game? Jennifer's killer explains that she was distracted by the monster, and for this, he will claim her points. She crumples to the ground, clutching her bleeding throat, as the prisoners acknowledge that they play to reduce their sentences, gaining points proportional to their terms, which can be exchanged for currency or items. One inmate, Nick, extols the game, relishing the opportunity to reduce his 180-year sentence for murder and body disposal. He has a mere 30 years remaining. Simultaneously, in the observation room, an alarm sounds, signaling the demise of player F1314 Jennifer. The automatic disconnection follows as a prison officer confirms her lifeless state. In the game, death translates to a heart attack in real life, with the life ring transferring from one player to another upon a prisoner's demise. The ring tightens on the new wearer's hand, and a system window appears, welcoming them to the Forest of Diablo, expressing hopes for their enjoyment. Within the game, Haruto navigates a chilly cave, contemplating the game's unnerving realism. He laments his reluctant participation, but acknowledges that it's the only means to achieve his goal. Lighting a cigarette, he contemplates his immediate objective and emerges from the cave into a small courtyard. He questions whether it is a burial site, then swiftly departs, leaving a trail of dust behind him as he approaches a tomb. Pondering his fortune, he ignites a cigarette with a candle on a nearby table, lamenting his initial lack of fire. Haruto Hagami, serving a 500-year sentence for multiple murders, searches for a map or any useful information. To his astonishment, a system window materializes before him, indicating the game's unexpected technological advancements. The coffin lid stirs, prompting his curiosity, and he stumbles upon a girl within, questioning whether she's deceased or another player. As he contemplates the situation, a system window details an item, a bead of peace. Haruto reaches for the bead, intrigued by its significance, and experiences an unexpected sensation. Suddenly, Nick launches an attack from behind. But Haruto narrowly evades it. Haruto, landing gracefully, inquires about Nick's motives. Nick, with a maniacal grin, questions Haruto's dedication to missions and beating the game, suggesting that accumulating points through kills might be a more lucrative path. Haruto, however, maintains that his gaming style is his prerogative, expressing disinterest in earning points through bloodshed. His true objective? Assassinating Kokiru Kim, chairman of the Phoenix Society, a clandestine organization controlling a significant portion of the world's resources and profiting from bets on the Forest of Diablo. With this mission, Haruto found himself thrust into this perilous virtual world. Nick's voice trembles with shock upon learning of Haruto's 500-year sentence and inquires about his past crimes, to which Haruto admits to numerous transgressions. Nick considers himself incredibly fortunate. He's earned 10,000 points for a one-year term, but if he eliminates this adversary, he'll gain a whopping 5 million points. A sudden influx of wealth seems imminent. At this moment, he confidently asserts that he'll not only save himself, but also secure a financial windfall. The menacing creature ceases to concern him. Haruto inquires, is he referring to the creature lurking behind him? Nick, with only a fleeting moment to react, questions the subject of the conversation just as the monstrous hand pierces through him. His body convulses with pain, and he demands an explanation of what just transpired and how the creature located him. Haruto points out that Nick's constant chatter left him vulnerable. The monster's crimson eyes radiate a potent and noticeable aura. Haruto ponders whether this entity is also a part of the game's cast. It's genuinely terrifying. The monster hurls Nick's lifeless body toward him. Haruto observes this and declares Nick dispensable. With a swift kick, he repels the airborne body. He seizes the sword, claiming it as his own. Haruto strikes with the sword, sending the monster's hat flying and scattering beads in all directions. He resolves not to meet his end here. As he scrutinizes the monster, he's taken aback. He wonders if he hasn't left a single mark on the creature's body. He swings again, now certain that he cannot inflict any harm on this monster. The monster remains impervious to his attacks. The creature retaliates with a powerful swipe of its clawed paw. Haruto parries the blow using the recently acquired sword. Propelling himself back several meters, he keeps his gaze locked on the monster, urgently searching for a solution. If this adversary is a playable character, there must be a way to defeat it. The bead of repose springs to mind. Perhaps this item holds the key. As the monster charges, Haruto seizes the opportunity, jumping onto the monster's back and somersaulting behind it. He believes he has nothing to lose, so he proceeds. He descends directly onto the coffin where the woman lay, catching the monster's attention. Haruto rests his hands on the edges of the coffin and touches the resting bead with his lips. The monster advances, and he vaults off the coffin with a bead in his mouth. The woman rises with a surge of powerful energy, emitting a deafening scream and sporting glowing red eyes. She thrusts her hand into the monster's body. Haruto pivots and expels a sphere that strikes the monster's mouth precisely. Simultaneously, he moves in from behind, seizing the opportune moment to strike with his sword. He severs the monster's head, the same monster that the woman had impaled. It dawns on him that if she had become his adversary, he'd have been in grave danger, but it appears this beauty is assisting the players. He turns away, believing he's emerged victorious from the game. A system window appears before him, and he queries whether he's completed the game. Sensing imminent danger, he swiftly turns around. The woman unleashes a potent strike, severing Haruto's hand. His own blood splatters onto his face, leaving him utterly astonished. He can't comprehend it. As it turns out, Haruto blocked the attack using Nick's lifeless body. He demands to know why the game hasn't concluded yet. After all, he defeated the boss. He's about to implore the woman to desist, but she persists in approaching to strike him. Haruto questions the bizarre turn of events. Seated in an opulent chair, the girl laughs heartily. She remarks that it seems this guy is trapped. She asks Manessa if they should offer him some item. Manessa, standing nearby and gazing at her tablet, asserts that despite being the chairman, she cannot intervene in the game. The girl in the opulent chair commends her for this stance. Meanwhile, the Diablo forests are filled with spectators. Onlookers revel in the unfolding spectacle and place bets on Haruto. Haruto evades the woman's attacks and inquires if she's the boss. He's about to counterattack, with no time for deliberation. He smashes his sword onto the woman's head, apologizing to this enchanting Zhang Shi, the Chinese hopping vampire. To his shock, the sword shatters. Zhang Shi retaliates with a punch, but Haruto narrowly evades. Spectators rally behind him, encouraging him to fight on and asking if he's okay. Haruto eyes the monster's decapitated head, realizing that the beat is likely within it. For now, he decides to flee from Zhang Shi and ponders his next move. He comprehends that conventional weapons are futile against her. Despite concocting a plan, he acknowledges it's worth attempting. The girl in the chair remarks that escape is futile, as Zhang Shi relentlessly pursues him. Manessa remains silent, observing the unfolding events. Haruto races through the cave, spotting a narrow passage. He deduces that heading there is his best option. He dashes through the tight gap with astounding speed. Zhang Shi becomes ensnared in the cramped passage, emitting a piercing scream in her pursuit. Haruto lunges at her, determined to find her weakness, if she has one. He delivers a forceful blow to Zhang Shi's head, but the sword shatters once more, leaving her unscathed. Haruto grows frustrated that he can't even scratch her. Zhang Shi forces her way through and hurls a punch, sending Haruto flying onto a bridge suspended over lava. With agility, Haruto scrambles to the other side as Zhang Shi continues her relentless pursuit. He severs a rope with a knife, inquiring, "What about this?" Cutting the rope, he asks, "No matter how invulnerable she is, can she survive a plunge into the magma?" Zhang Shi plummets, screaming vehemently as she attempts to reach the ground. The system notification signals the boss's defeat, and Haruto receives rewards. He exhales, expressing his relief. The audience erupts in cheers at his triumph, though some mourn their lost wagers. On the BET platform, a girl seated in a chair experiences a shocking turn of events, expressing her disbelief at the unexpected way Junction was defeated. Meanwhile, Haruto receives a notification that he has earned 1,000,000 points for completing mission M9527. To expedite his progress, he can exchange these points in the lobby. The game session concludes, and as Haruto opens his eyes in the real world, he grimaces in pain, realizing there is a tangible connection to reality. The Phoenix Society utilizes satellites to broadcast the underground game, reaping profits from the bets placed on it. In an office setting, a man inquires about the outcome, with some attributing their losses to Nick. The man acknowledges that he underestimated the Dark Horse in the past, but hints that this time is different. The criminal who previously committed heinous acts, including the murder of Dr. Yamagashi, the developer of virtual space technology, and his family, has now successfully completed the game's missions at a remarkable speed. A girl in a bathroom holding a glass of wine glances at Haruto and offers praise, emphasizing that he shouldn't be underestimated. Others chime in, acknowledging that he has exceeded expectations, regardless of his past crimes. Manessa questions whether Haruto was truly responsible for the crimes he was imprisoned for, but someone dismisses this concern, highlighting the importance of keeping the show exciting. An elderly man sitting on the girl's lap suggests entertaining Haruto further, and turning to the girl, expresses his desire to eat, causing Manessa to avert her gaze. Later, the system announces the commencement of the next game, prompting Haruto to choose the items he'll bring. Haruto, recalling a previous incident where he had nothing to light his cigarette, requests cigarettes and a lighter this time. The system confirms his choice, and Haruto immerses himself in virtual reality once more. However, this time he finds himself submerged underwater and accidentally swallows water. A shark suddenly appears, heading straight for him. Panic sets in as the shark approaches with an open mouth, and Haruto attempts to evade the impending attack. Another shark surfaces and seizes him by the jacket's hood. Haruto struggles for breath, fearing he may lose consciousness. The situation feels eerily reminiscent of a childhood near-drowning incident, with a girl in a bathing suit coming to his rescue. Haruto regains his focus, realizing he must fight to survive. He delivers a powerful blow to the shark's head, much to the delight of the watching audience. Haruto continues to fend off the shark, determined to prevail. After defeating the shark, he surfaces and catches his breath, acknowledging his close call and the ruined cigarettes and lighter. Surveying his surroundings, Haruto observes enormous trees emerging from the water and inquires about his mission. A system window reveals the objective: obtaining the treasure of the mermaids, with a level D difficulty. He questions the game's progress, noting that 21 players have already died despite the recent start. A suited man suddenly approaches, poised to attack Haruto. Haruto notices the threat and turns to confront the attacker just as another shark intervenes, attacking the would-be assailant. Puzzled by the unfolding events, Haruto realizes it's a different shark, as this one lacks the previous one's wound. Haruto begins to wonder how many sharks are in this game. As he contemplates this, he notices a strange glow near the deceased shark, with magical energy striking the nearby tree. The suited man appears drawn to the tree, readying his sword for an attack. Haruto leaps away, narrowly avoiding the sword strike, and lands on another tree branch. He inquires about the attacker's survival and identifies him as the same person who had attacked him earlier. The man acknowledges Haruto's resilience and explains that he had observed battles while in prison, leading to a substantial wager on him. He insists that Haruto follow him, sparking Haruto's curiosity. Haruto queries the source of the man's abilities and how he executes his agile maneuvers. The man discloses that it's a reward for defeating the boss, a revelation that leaves Haruto pondering the lack of game instructions and his earlier carelessness. Haruto admits to skipping instructions and asserts that he won't die easily. The woman introduces herself as Mia, albeit with a 50-year sentence for murder. Haruto is surprised by her gender and offers to compensate for the damaged body armor due to the sharks. Mia suggests he pay more attention, clarifying the concept of points as the in-game currency. In this game, you have the opportunity to purchase items, equipment, and negotiate deals with other players. But it's essential not to deplete all your points before exiting. Haruto inquires why this is the case, to which Mia explains that there's a rule that if a player reaches 0 points, they will be forcibly eliminated after 10 minutes. Haruto expresses his gratitude for the warning. As they ascend a small building, he remarks on her extensive knowledge of the game and asks how long she has been part of it. Mia casually pours herself a drink, offers some to Haruto, and shares that she's approaching her 2nd year in the game. She adds that consuming food in these recreation areas also satiates hunger in reality, ensuring players won't starve unless they meet an untimely demise. Suddenly, Haruto senses that something peculiar is unfolding. He rushes towards Mia to issue a warning, but before he can react, a mysterious force seizes her, causing her to drop her mug. A syringe is forcibly inserted into her throat. Haruto calls out to her in bewilderment, but there's no one visible around except for the man responsible. The man introduces himself as Katani Shiro, serving a 130-year sentence for heinous crimes like rape and murder. Mia pleads with him to stop, but Katani reveals his unique skill, chameleon-like invisibility, which he expended considerable energy to acquire. Haruto intervenes, insisting that Katani must release Mia, but Katani speculates whether Haruto is her new boyfriend. Haruto discloses his name and warns Katani to release Mia or face dire consequences. Katani recognizes Haruto's name, recalling him as the individual with a 500-year sentence. He acknowledges that Haruto is a valuable target worth 5 million points, a potential goldmine. Haruto suggests that Katani might be better off targeting him instead, but Katani dismisses the idea, asserting that he doesn't need Haruto as long as he has Mia. This infuriates Haruto, and he confronts Katani, who retaliates by holding a knife to Mia's back, threatening her life if Haruto gets any closer. Haruto's anger triggers something within Mia, causing her eyes to emit a green glow. She deflects the knife away from her, surprising Katani. Seizing the opportunity, Haruto charges at Katani and delivers a powerful punch to his face. The force of the blow propels Katani over a nearby fence, straight into the waiting jaws of a shark. Katani screams as he falls and is promptly devoured by the shark. With Mia safe, Haruto lifts her up and checks on her well-being. She confirms she's okay, but urges him to leave the area quickly as it's no longer safe. Other players will soon converge on their location. Haruto expresses his hesitation to leave without learning how to use the skills. Other players arrive, and Mia instructs him to simply speak the skill's name to activate it. Several players recognize Haruto as Hagami and realize that eliminating him would yield 5 million points. They debate whether to attack, but they also recognize the danger of becoming hunted if they amass too many points. Mia insists that she'll rest while Haruto deals with them himself, although she's clearly concerned for his safety. Approaching the group of players, Haruto asks if they're finished discussing their plans. The white-haired man among them declares that they will attack him together, confident that even if they share the reward, it will be substantial. The tallest man chimes in, agreeing that they can figure out what to do with their gains after they eliminate Haruto. All of them ready their weapons, and the white-haired man, brandishing a bow, boasts about showcasing the power of the three brothers. Haruto deftly evades the incoming arrow and activates his special ability, triggering a system interface that displays a grotesque zombie hand with sharp claws, aptly named Zombie Claws. One of the assailants halts, intrigued by this sudden development. Without hesitation, Haruto inserts his hand into the system window, and a bizarre transformation takes hold. His hand morphs into a zombie-like appendage, a startling surprise even to him. The swordsman amongst the attackers raises his weapon and vociferously declares Haruto's impending demise. Simultaneously, the tallest adversary rushes forward at breakneck speed. Haruto intercepts the sword strike with his grotesque hand, calmly inquiring about its effectiveness. However, he notices a new threat approaching from the side as another attacker lunges with a metal-clad glove, demanding to know where his attention lies. Haruto manages to parry this assault, but the force behind it pushes him back significantly. In a disorienting whirlwind, he's propelled over a nearby fence, all while three assailants advance menacingly. Landing on a sturdy tree, a barrage of arrows is unleashed in his direction. He miraculously bounces off the tree, narrowly dodging the projectiles. Ascending into the air, Haruto spots a bow-wielding individual below and calls out to him. With a menacing swing of his clawed hand, Haruto threatens to begin with this archer. A series of energy waves is launched at the bowman from a distance. The archer springs into the air, skillfully evading all the incoming waves. Haruto is astonished by his newfound capabilities, realizing that this virtual realm allows him to perform feats beyond his real-world capabilities. Meanwhile, a swordsman leaps onto a nearby rooftop, signaling for his comrades to stand down as he takes Haruto on single-handedly. He thrusts his blade forward, asserting that Haruto's fate is sealed. Predicting an attack from behind by the glove-wielding assailant, Haruto confidently counters, vowing not to be caught off guard so easily. With a double-footed kick to the swordsman's face, he reminds him to remember this lesson. Haruto swiftly turns his attention to the glove-wielding foe, promising that he's next in line. He delivers a devastating strike with his clawed hand, inflicting numerous gashes on his opponent's body, causing him to cough up blood. In the midst of the chaos, a man with a bow calls out to his brother Bob, and the system notification chimes in, revealing that he's earned 400,000 points for eliminating a player named M987, Bob Rodriguez. Puzzled, Haruto questions whether he heard correctly. Did the voice in his head just mention 400k points? Suddenly, a voice calls out from behind, and Haruto realizes that Mia is now being targeted. A man with a sword threatens Mia's life, warning her not to move. The situation intensifies as the bow-wielding attacker informs John that it's Bob they're avenging. To Haruto's amazement, Bob rises to his feet, revealing fangs and an ominous breath. Haruto smiles, piecing together the puzzle, and addresses John, hinting at something intriguing he's about to share. They might not have been aware, but this particular zombie hand skill doesn't solely eliminate players. John gazes at him and inquires, what is he implying? Behind him, Bob suddenly emerges and delivers a two-handed blow to John's head. The system promptly notifies everyone that player M986, John Rodriguez, succumbed to a zombie he had summoned, resulting in him acquiring 320,000 points. Haruto takes notice of this development and remarks that, as it turns out, the points will be credited to him. The archer who had been in their vicinity hastily departs, muttering, "This can't be." A while later, Mia awakens and discerns her name being called. Haruto stands nearby and comments that it appears she has regained consciousness. She acknowledges him and inquires if he saved her in this manner. Profoundly grateful, she also notices Bob, who stands beside Haruto. Mia instinctively draws her sword, expressing disbelief that he is still alive. Haruto assures her that Bob is no longer an adversary, having become his loyal minion thanks to the zombie arm skill. Bob now obediently follows Haruto's commands, helping to ease Mia's apprehension. She queries if Bob is, in fact, a zombie. Haruto explains that, for the time being, Bob will serve as their protector, allowing them to take a much-needed rest. Mia is taken aback by Haruto's remarkable skill. Meanwhile, a man observing from a nearby chair comments that the skill is exceptionally intriguing. Regardless of how much he has supervised him, the man has not shown any signs of fatigue. He turns to a woman named Manasa, seeking her agreement. She concurs and notes that at this rate, he might successfully complete the game. The man ponders aloud what she thinks, suggesting that they should proceed to the next event. Later on, Mia decides to take a shower. On her back, a tattoo of 2 wings and a sword catches Haruto's attention. He stands outside and jestingly questions her choice of showering in this setting. Admitting he doesn't comprehend women's logic, he also contemplates the significance of bathing in the virtual game world. Mia playfully forbids him from peeking. Haruto lightheartedly concedes that he is bewildered by the situation. He is suddenly interrupted by the growling of his stomach, a reminder that even within the game, one can experience hunger. Haruto decides to search for food and assigns Bob as the guard. Inside a small room, Haruto explores his surroundings, anxious about starving to death in the game. He discovers an assortment of vegetables in a drawer. Employing precise knife work, he begins to chop carrots and prepares a soup in a small saucepan, seasoning it with spices. As he tastes his creation, he acknowledges a sense of frustration, realizing it doesn't match Mia's culinary prowess. Mia approaches, expressing her surprise at his culinary skills. Haruto casually attributes it to being a mere hobby. This prompts Mia to inquire about the topic she wanted to discuss earlier. Mia explains that she has an offer, teaming up in the game's final stages. She highlights Haruto's ability to complete missions without resorting to player elimination and gain points. She surmises that he must have a broader goal than just escaping prison. Haruto appreciates her astuteness, but keeps his true mission to himself, acknowledging that her trust in him exceeds that of other mission runners. They both recognize the benefits of collaborating to complete missions more efficiently. Mia emphasizes that she is primarily interested in a swift prison escape and inquires about his thoughts on the proposal. Haruto agrees, confirming his willingness to team up with her. However, Mia is taken aback by Haruto's comment about teaming up with a woman sporting a tattoo on her back. Curiosity piqued, she asks if he saw her tattoo. Before she can elaborate further, a sudden commotion ensues as a platter of food crashes to the floor. Haruto swiftly covers Mia's mouth, urging her to remain silent. He listens attentively and then uncovers her mouth, inquiring if she hears something. Their attention is drawn to the sound of singing emanating from a nearby spot in the midst of the seas. It's a mermaid playing a harp and serenading, audible to players scattered throughout the island. Curiosity spreads among players who speculate about the source of the melodious sound. Haruto and Mia remain perplexed. As the enchanting melody continues, players are drawn to the mermaids. One player even bestows a kiss upon a mermaid, only to be surprisingly submerged in the water. Other mermaids quickly follow suit, pulling players beneath the waves. Haruto questions the unfolding situation, bewildered by the strange turn of events. Mia shares his repulsion, and the mermaid's song persists. Observing the enchanted players, Haruto's curiosity grows. Suddenly, he discerns something unusual and asks if she noticed. Plates of food crash to the ground once more. Haruto covers her mouth again, cautioning her to remain quiet. Afterward, he removes his hand and listens again. A player who was left ashore watches in awe as the mesmerized players are lured into the sea by the mermaids. Haruto questions what is happening and whether there is something lurking beneath the water's surface. They suddenly notice the appearance of a mermaid right in front of them. The mermaid emerges from the water and extends an invitation to approach. Upon hearing this, Haruto's expression undergoes a dramatic change, and he experiences an eerie pressure. He attempts to stand and move toward the mermaid, but his eyes emit a faint, otherworldly glow. Mia, observing his strange behavior, inquires about what has happened to him. To his dismay, Haruto discovers that he can no longer control his body, or even utter a word. Is it the influence of the mermaids? What is happening? Interestingly, Mia remains unaffected, prompting the question, do mermaids only exert control over men? Mia reaches out to Haruto, wondering if he can hear her and imploring him to snap out of it. Haruto, finding himself unable to resist, embraces a mermaid on the shore and notices another mermaid seated at a distance. She has been sitting there for quite some time, but why hasn't she made any aggressive moves? Could it be because of the song? The moment he heard the singing, he lost control over his own body. Meanwhile, Mia prepares herself by donning a hazmat suit and remarks that Haruto is turning out to be quite the troublesome companion. Mentally apologizing to Mia, Haruto realizes that she is his only hope. He hopes she can also sense something affecting her mind. With a swift motion, she readies her sword to attack. She launches her attack from behind Haruto, who becomes aware of her actions. To his surprise, he appears as the mermaid who stands on dry land, wielding a sword. He believes that Mia should have targeted the singing mermaid instead. An onlooker notices something is amiss and starts to worry. The mermaid stabbed with her sword doesn't seem to be deterred and continues to attack her relentlessly, seemingly unfazed by the injury. The mermaid raises a hand charged with magic and delivers a powerful blow to Mia's helmet, sending her flying several meters back. Her helmet shatters into fragments. Haruto laments that he's helpless in this situation. Mia, lying on the ground, questions how the mermaid managed to break her helmet. Haruto believes the situation is deteriorating rapidly. Moreover, the wound Mia inflicted on the mermaid's body has already healed. Mia recognizes that she may need to change her tactics. She remarks that it seems she can only engage the mermaid from a distance. Removing her hazmat suit, she urges Hagami to wake up quickly. Haruto believes she should reconsider her course of action and refrain from heading into danger. However, the mermaid leaps high into the air and seizes Mia, dragging her into the water. Haruto witnesses this and realizes that this is not the end. He still has one more card to play. Activating his skill, his hand undergoes a transformation that appears to be long overdue. Almost immediately, Bob emerges above the singing mermaid, delivering a powerful strike. Unfortunately, the mermaid manages to evade the attack by diving into the water, causing Bob to strike the stone on which she had been sitting. Haruto's eyes return to their normal state, and he rejoices in his newfound control. Without hesitation, he dives into the water in pursuit of the mermaids, determined to put an end to this perilous situation. As he dives deeper, he notices two mermaids whose tails are connected to a colossal monster. Haruto is puzzled by this development but remains resolute in his mission to save Mia. Meanwhile, a pair of mermaids are approaching Haruto, and one of them is ferrying Mia toward the massive monster. As Mia is carried away, she reaches out to Haruto, hoping for his intervention. The mermaid delivers Mia straight into the gaping maw of the colossal monster, which brims with menacing teeth. Haruto comprehends that this monstrous entity controls the mermaids. His hand starts to emit a brilliant glow, and he realizes it's time to take action. He releases a barrage of waves using his hand as a weapon, inflicting several wounds on each of the approaching mermaids. Swimming towards the colossal monster, Haruto wonders where Mia has gone. Suddenly, something catches his attention. He notices movement atop the head of the gigantic fish. He raises his gaze and observes the tail of the colossal fish hurtling swiftly toward him. The monster strikes him forcefully with its tail, but Haruto manages to grab hold of the portion that was controlling the mermaids. Despite the bleeding wound on his head from the monster's attack, he refuses to give up. Perched on the monster's head, he holds onto the structure and swings, determined to rescue Mia. He delivers a powerful blow to the monster's head with his zombie hand and spots Mia, relieved that she is unharmed. Haruto reaches out for her hand, and she reciprocates. Together, they begin to swim upward, knowing that they need to reach the surface. Breaking through the water's surface, they take a deep breath. Haruto inquires if Mia is okay, and she assures him that she is fine and grateful for his intervention. Just as they're catching their breath, a massive shark suddenly appears behind Mia, ready to attack. Haruto quickly spots the impending danger and shouts a warning to Mia. She turns around and spots the enormous shark as well. In a split-second reaction, he seizes her hand and pulls her toward him, narrowly averting the shark's deadly strike. Recognizing the urgency, Haruto emphasizes the need to reach the shore as quickly as possible. Mia queries how the sharks ended up in this situation, to which Haruto responds that they were nearly on the menu themselves just moments ago. How many monsters are lurking here? Mia peers out the window and counts only 4 of them. Haruto points to the water, drawing Mia's attention to a mermaid playing a harp, surrounded by 4 sharks. The mermaid gazes at them with piercing red eyes. Haruto inquires if she's still alive. Mia speculates that this creature may not be an ordinary monster, suggesting it could be a local entity. The mermaid hisses and starts swimming towards them. Mia wonders if she's pursuing them, and if she's the one controlling the sharks. Haruto asks whether the sharks will follow them onto land. Astonishingly, the shark makes its way ashore, using its arms and legs to move. Haruto is dumbfounded by this sight and admits he was mistaken to believe they wouldn't pursue them. Mia inquires about the creature and questions how a shark could have legs. Seeing the shark approach, she warns Haruto. In response, Haruto swiftly leaps out of the way and instructs her to evade the incoming threat. Using her skill, Mia propels herself into the air, but the monster quickly grabs her leg and hurls her onto the rocks. She regains her footing, nursing her injured hand. Haruto checks on her well-being, and the shark rapidly advances towards her. He issues an order to protect Mia. At that very moment, Bob materializes beside the speedy shark. The shark lunges at Bob, who plunges his hand into the creature's head. The shark retaliates by biting down on Bob's glove. Two more sharks materialize, clamping down on Bob's head and other hand. From the water, the mermaid watches and chuckles. Haruto helplessly observes as the sharks tear apart his zombies. A fourth shark materializes behind him, completely surrounding him. He acknowledges that the sharks are systematically eliminating their enemies one by one, a shrewd tactic that plays into his hands. His plan is to eliminate them all in one fell swoop. The shark launches a fierce attack with its hand, but Haruto deftly dodges and prepares to retaliate. With a mighty strike fueled by his skill, he severs the monster's arm. The creature immediately turns its attention toward him. Haruto swiftly maneuvers, darting with great agility to land a powerful blow on the monstrous creature's abdomen. He strikes it with immense force. Simultaneously, another shark lunges at him from an unexpected angle. Haruto belatedly detects this assault, and the shark's fist connects with him, though he skillfully manages to slash the monster's neck in retaliation. The excruciating pain courses through his body as he contemplates their formidable strength and their apparent grasp of martial arts techniques, along with their remarkable teamwork. Without a moment to catch his breath, another shark sets its sights on Haruto. A colossal monster-sized fist hurtles toward him, and it slams into the ground with an earth-shattering impact, sending sand scattering in every direction. Haruto nimbly evades the attack, leaping away, and goads the shark to come closer. The shark raises its head, fixing a piercing gaze upon him. Haruto thrusts his arm forward, plunging it into the creature, and carves a series of deep gashes across its monstrous body. The beast succumbs to its injuries, crashing lifelessly to the ground. As the melodic strains of a mermaid's song reach his ears, Haruto's body inexplicably loses control. He puzzles over his inability to move as the enchanting melody washes over him. However, he remains resolute. This is not the opportune moment for such distraction. Nevertheless, things won't play out as they did last time. Observing the ongoing battle, an old man comments on Haruto's apparent demise, expressing his disappointment at the unmet expectations. Meanwhile, the eyes of the sharks begin to gleam with an eerie green light. Haruto realizes that all the sharks he previously incapacitated are now under his influence. This revelation astonishes the old man, who inquires if Haruto has truly subjugated these creatures. The notion of controlling beings other than humans never crossed his mind. In a coordinated effort, all four monsters converge to attack the mermaid. She transforms her flowing hair into a multitude of tentacles, which she deploys to ensnare the zombified sharks. With her tentacles, she seizes and lifts the sharks high into the air, smashing them mercilessly against each other. Haruto begins to notice a peculiar sensation in his hand, realizing that the mermaid possesses abilities beyond her enchanting song. Nevertheless, he remains unfazed. He won't relinquish his determination. The mermaid, unfazed by her predicament, proceeds to feast upon the blood of the suspended sharks, savoring the dripping liquid. Haruto seizes this opportune moment, launching an attack while she is preoccupied. He understands that his target is her neck. He extends his claws, but the mermaid agilely evades his assault, leaving his claws to strike the tentacles protruding from her head instead. He acknowledges the missed opportunity as a tentacle ensnares his neck. The mermaid exerts force, pulling him closer. Haruto contemplates his dwindling options. With great effort, he attempts to cry out for aid, but his voice fails him. In a twist of fate, a colossal fish-like monstrosity emerges from the depths of the water, controlling the mermaid's actions. Haruto watches this unexpected development with a mix of disbelief and regret. The monstrous arrival couldn't have been more ill-timed, catching him entirely off guard. The fish monster emits an ear-splitting scream and lunges towards them. The mermaid, in the nick of time, manages to evade the monster's attack, narrowly escaping its savage bite. Haruto wonders if the monstrous creature had intended to devour the entire mermaid. Did they not function as a cohesive team? Spectators nearby comment on the unfolding spectacle. One man, invested in the outcome, instructs another to remain quiet, as he had placed a wager on Haruto. The second man asserts that he hadn't uttered a word. Observing from his vantage point, a third man on top of a woman expresses his surprise at the engrossing events. He mumbles that he hadn't encountered individuals quite as captivating as those before. He emphasizes the need for Haruto to stay alive since he has become a treasured pawn. Haruto ponders whether the mermaid, who was initially aligned with the monsters, became a zombie after he rescued Mia. Despite the perilous circumstances, the mermaid continues to hold him with her tentacles. Haruto contemplates the debt she must repay for her actions. Meanwhile, the zombified mermaids, now under the monstrous fish's control, close in on their prey. They assail the mermaid, sinking their teeth into her shoulders and head. A grin creeps across Haruto's face as he witnesses his newfound ability. He marvels at the incredible power he wields, akin to an almost unfair advantage. Turning to the mermaid, he offers a brief apology for her loss of companionship. The mermaid's laughter surprises Haruto, perplexing him in the midst of the chaotic situation. However, her laughter is cut short as she unleashes a deafening scream, releasing powerful sound waves. Haruto grimaces in agony as the sound waves pierce his eardrums, causing blood to trickle from his ears. The mermaid continues her piercing cries, the sound waves even reaching the colossal fish monster. Mia, nearby, covers her ears to shield herself from the deafening noise. The loudspeakers broadcasting the event succumb to the sound waves, baffling the onlookers. Spectators inquire about the sudden turn of events, the monitor having been shattered. After a brief interruption, the monitors recommence their transmission. Viewers express their desire to witness the unfolding spectacle. As the mermaid maintains her grip on Haruto, the two plummet together. Concerned viewers speculate whether Haruto has lost consciousness. The scene unfolds further, as the mermaid and Haruto fall into the gaping maw of the monstrous fish. The crowd urges Haruto to awaken, fearing his imminent demise. However, a contrary faction wishes for the mermaid to exact her vengeance. Haruto struggles to regain consciousness, eventually managing to do so. With determination, he seizes the mermaid's face, muffling her screams. Haruto gazes at her, expressing his irritation at her sudden shrill outburst. The mermaid endeavors to ensnare him once more with her song, but Haruto redirects her voice into the fish monster's gaping maw, instructing her to remain silent. In this critical moment, the monstrous fish clamps down on the mermaid, simultaneously severing Haruto's hand. Haruto's hand lands next to the colossal monster, now stranded on dry land. Though racked with pain, he acknowledges the significant sacrifice he made. The mermaid's piercing screams cease as she is devoured by the monstrous fish. Breathing heavily, Haruto muses about the completion of his mission. He questions the fate of the mermaid's treasure required for the task's fulfillment. Observing the bracelet adorning the mermaid's wrist, he inquires if this is the coveted item. In response, the system notification arrives, announcing the successful completion of the game. Player number M9527, Haruto Hagami, is awarded 1 million points for obtaining the mermaid's treasure. The mission is accomplished, and the system begins the automatic disconnection of players. He starts to lose consciousness and concerns himself with Mia's well-being. He gazes at her, and she responds with a reassuring thumbs up. He exits the game and reflects on the fact that he hasn't experienced this level of enjoyment in a long while. The system then signals that the game has concluded. Sometime later, Haruto regains consciousness within the prison facility. Questioning if he has returned, it appears to him that he might already be deceased. He tests his body, relieved to find his limbs intact and hearing intact, albeit with a faint, lingering ringing. He surmises that losing body parts in the game doesn't appear to affect reality. He determines that he can afford to take some risks within the game, but if he dies in the game, it means real-life death. He resolves to exercise caution in the future. A guard approaches his cell, reporting that prisoner number M9527 is alive with no abnormalities. Haruto must place his hands behind his head and exit the cell. Meanwhile, players M9538 and M9556 have perished, while prisoner number M9551 is alive with no deviations and is instructed to leave the cell quickly. Number M9572 is deceased. Haruto ponders whether most players met their demise. The guards inform the survivors that they must accompany the officer to the field immediately. They will be shot if they surrender or attempt any actions on the field. The officer instructs them to form a single column. Haruto glances over the fence and spots Mia waving at him. He's relieved to see her alive and in good health. He notices another girl standing beside Mia and wonders about her identity. Behind him stands Katani, who prohibits him from focusing on Mia. Katani emphasizes that completing a D-rank mission doesn't grant him unlimited privileges, and he shouldn't take that for granted. Next time, Katani asserts, he will make sure Haruto doesn't survive. Mia recognizes him and quips about his persistent survival. Haruto recognizes Katani and asks if he is the same person he pushed into the sea. Katani expresses surprise at Haruto's apparent lack of recognition, shares his name, and recounts the shark attack incident. He hid until the game's end, enduring hardships Haruto couldn't comprehend. The officer queries their actions, urging them to act immediately. Katani offers the officer a deal, and they exchange points through their wristbands. The officer observes the transfer of 5,000 points and encourages them to make their actions vivid. Haruto and Katani agree, and Katani elaborates on the possibilities available with points. Haruto, however, warns Katani not to cross the line again. Haruto's act captures the attention of nearby girls, prompting one to inquire if he's Mia's boyfriend. The officer reminds them that firearms are prohibited and orders Katani to surrender his weapon. Haruto apprehends the situation and insists on Katani's compliance. Haruto then glances toward the women's section of the prison, intrigued by a girl he believes might resemble someone he knows. He contemplates discussing this with Mia later. An announcement over the loudspeaker announces lunchtime, with prisoners expected to assemble at the canteen. The menu displays the state meal at 2,000 points and regular bread at 500 points. Haruto questions the pricing, wondering if 500 points is too expensive for standard bread. Katani responds, emphasizing that points grant one considerable freedom. Haruto cautions Katani not to approach him again, reiterating his desire to leave the prison. Katani offers to buy him anything he desires, and hints at additional forms of entertainment within the prison. Haruto inquires about these additional sources of entertainment, and Katani, slightly nervous, assures him that there's an array of activities that make it hard to believe this is a prison. Hot springs, skiing, alcohol, and the opportunity to enjoy the company of companions are all on offer. Isn't that intriguing? What's he aiming for? Haruto holds a piece of bread between his teeth and nonchalantly remarks that he's indifferent. Katani trails behind, mentioning that you can invest points in acquiring skills. He had devoted a substantial portion of his points to obtain the chameleon skill. This piece of information piqued Haruto's curiosity, prompting him to turn towards Katani. One of the incarcerated individuals inquires if Haruto is Hagami, the rookie who has already completed 2 missions. Katani quietly informs him that this gang has been taunting everyone recently. He advises Haruto not to engage, as reacting may lead to problems. Another inmate approaches and rebukes Haruto for not paying attention while his friend talks. He wonders if Haruto was brought up with no manners. Haruto gazes at him in silence. The confrontational prisoner asks what Haruto is staring at and threatens to confront him. He swings his fist, but Haruto swiftly intervenes, delivering a powerful punch to the head. The prisoner tumbles to the ground from the force. Other prisoners rise to assert that the antagonist has met his end. Katani observes from the shadows. An officer intervenes, questioning their actions and reminding them that physical altercations, apart from point transactions, are forbidden. Haruto promptly strikes another prisoner on the head. Fellow inmates help the injured prisoner while Katani ensures he's all right. One of the prisoners is irate, demanding that Haruto be reprimanded for his behavior. Haruto adeptly dodges an incoming attack and retaliates with a formidable blow to the assailant's torso. Another prisoner charges towards Haruto, bellowing in rage. Haruto kicks him to the ground just as the inmate lunges, sending him sprawling. The officer informs prisoner M9576 that he'll pay for the damages with his own points. The cafeteria soon devolves into chaos, with battered inmates strewn about. Those still standing question whether it actually happened and if Haruto acted alone. Haruto reflects on possibly overdoing it a bit. He exhales, pondering the consequences of his actions. Haruto calls the antagonist an idiot, and tensions flare again. Haruto insists that the antagonist respond when called, resulting in an angry exchange. Katani peeks out from behind a pillar, clarifying that his name is Katani, not idiot. Haruto resolves to keep a lower profile moving forward. Inquiring if smoking is permitted in the facility, Haruto is met with Katani's affirmative response. After some time, they find themselves in a designated smoking area. Haruto expresses disbelief at the exorbitant price of 2,000 points for a pack of cigarettes. Katani acknowledges this as a means of discouraging inmates from accumulating points for their release. Haruto lights a cigarette for the first time in a while, relishing the sensation. He inquires if Katani smokes as well. Katani discloses that he's been imprisoned for approximately 3 years, initially serving a 100-year sentence that has since been extended to 130 years. Haruto questions the reasons behind the sentence extension, assuming that sentences should be reduced in a correctional facility. Katani elucidates that sentences can indeed be reduced through point transactions, but committing real-life murder would lead to an increase in one's sentence. Haruto seeks clarification, affirming that killing someone would extend their sentence. Katani affirms this, reassuring Haruto not to worry. Haruto wonders why he isn't eager to expedite his release, but Katani calmly expresses disinterest in leaving. He argues that outside the prison walls, nobody values individuals like them. Moreover, with points, one can enjoy any meal and indulge in the company of women. Rumor has it that accumulating sufficient points could offer a chance to access a more appealing destination. Haruto concedes, recognizing the merit in staying put to avoid external troubles. Haruto seeks to comprehend the prison's apparent lack of rehabilitation efforts. Later, an officer instructs the prisoners to form pairs and enter their respective cells. Katani approaches the officer and surreptitiously requests placement in the same cell as the morning's antagonist. The officer questions Katani's motives, wondering if he intends to exact revenge. Katani clarifies that they are now allies and wish to engage in a conversation. The officer remains indifferent, permitting the arrangement. Haruto overhears a heated dispute nearby. The officer intervenes, prompting the arguing prisoner to request a different cell to avoid sharing with an insatiable inmate who consumes food voraciously. Dubbed Black Hole, this inmate's lifespan is a staggering 780 years owing to his murderous history. Katani explains that Black Hole lives up to his name by devouring anything in sight and, if left unfed, might consume his cellmate. The officer conveys that no more cells are available for swapping except for a VIP room. Frustrated, the arguing prisoner begrudgingly accepts relocation to the VIP room in exchange for points, while the officer appreciates the booking. Katani remarks that the VIP room costs 2,000 points per night, a minor price in comparison to one's life. Haruto asks, "Now no one will need to live with a black hole," Katani says. "That's not entirely true. If this happens, the place is automatically transferred to the next prisoner, so someone will definitely live with him. Now this guy will live in the same room with a black hole. This guy's name is Narumi. His term is 10 years due to damage to national property." Haruto looks at this and says nothing. The officer asks if he wants to switch with someone like the previous prisoner. Narumi says he only has 500 points. The officer says that in this case he has no other choice. Katani says he feels sorry for this guy, but it looks like this rookie won't live to see the morning. Haruto looks at him and says they will look into it. Katani asks why he decided that he will probably die because he will live in the same cell with a cannibal. Haruto goes into his cell and says he's going to bed. Katani turns to him and asks him to wait. Haruto yawns and says that they will find out the result tomorrow. Sometime later at night, Haruto lies on the mattress and thinks, "I thought it would be safe to be out of the game, but it looks like it's dangerous everywhere. What is it like for imprisoned women? I wonder if she's okay." Katani is awake and takes out a knife that he had hidden somewhere, at the same time in the shower. The girl laughs and says that this new girl is very cute. Does she want to make friends with us? Then first, she needs to undress. The girl that Haruto noticed is sitting on the floor and covering herself with a towel. In the next morning, the voice on the loudspeaker says that breakfast will start soon after the roll call. All prisoners will have to come to the dining room on their own. Haruto yawns very loudly because of his thoughts. He eventually could not sleep. Katani also gets up, eyes red from lack of sleep, and wishes him good morning. Haruto is surprised by how swollen his face is and asks if he is okay. All the prisoners begin to leave their cells. Katani says that he is sure that yesterday's guy was eaten by a black hole. Haruto says he doesn't think so. Maybe they should bet on a cigarette. Katani agrees to this argument. The officer says everyone in room 109 needs to go outside. The prisoners look at this and notice that the black hole is leaving the room and his cellmate is not visible. Has he been eaten? Katani laughs and says that he himself invited him to bet, and it seems he lost. Haruto points at the camera and says he should take a better look. Katani turns around to look at what's going on there. The black hole looks displeased as Narumi leaves the chamber. The prisoners ask, "Did he survive after all? How did he do it? Is it also the face of a black hole? Does he have a stomach ache?" Katani is very surprised and says that this cannot be. Not only was he not eaten, but he doesn't even have a single wound on him. The officer says that after breakfast there will be rest time until further instructions. Narumi looks around and looks at Haruto, and he looks at him. After some time on the field in prison, Haruto smokes and thinks, because the women's prison is far away, I can't contact Mia. Katani says he's upset that he can't meet Mia. They notice that Narumi is standing in front of them and looking at them. He makes a gesture with his head and invites them to follow him. Haruto goes to him and tells him that he should stay here. Kitani stands still and asks what's wrong with him. They go to some place where there are no other people. Haruto asks what he wanted from him. Narumi says that he saw him in the cafeteria yesterday, and his performance took him by surprise. Haruto wonders if he's the only one in that gang. He says they just attacked him first. Narumi very quickly runs up to him and swings her fist. Haruto notices this and is amazed at how fast he is. He barely dodges Narumi's attack and asks what's gotten into him. Why did he attack so suddenly? He notices his kick attack with great speed. Haruto barely has time to block this very fast kick attack with his hands. There is a severe bruise on his hand, and he wonders what is wrong with this guy. Narumi looks at him and says nothing. It jumps very high and spins at a terrifying speed. He strikes with an overhead kick, but Haruto manages to block the kick with two hands. He realizes that he fails to predict his movements. Does he have a particular style? While airborne, Narumi is about to strike with two fingers with incredible accuracy. Haruto grabs his arm and stops this attack before he can hit himself. He asks, "So, he wanted to hit a painful point, didn't he?" Narumi is surprised by this and releases his hand from the grip. He bounces off him and lands expertly on his feet. He says that he seems to know about pressure points. Haruto asks if he used this technique on the black hole last night. Narumi says it is. It's just that the guy was bothering him yesterday night. The black hole sits on the floor and says many times that he wants to eat. He looks back and looks at the sleeping Narumi. He grabs him by the neck with his huge hand and lifts him above him. He tears him apart. He starts to eat and notices that he is trying to eat a piece of cloth. He pulls the tissue out of his mouth and says he's gone. Narumi sits on the corner, holding on with her arms and legs. He pushes away from the corner and attacks it with great speed. He strikes with all his might at the black hole's face. He sits still and says, "That's where he was. Healthy meat is the tastiest, and he should get eaten faster." Narumi pushes her foot away from his face and dodges his grab with a somersault in flight. He immediately prepares to strike with two fingers, targeting his opponent's vulnerable point. His hand plunges deep into the center of the ominous void, and this takes him by surprise. The formidable force of the void strikes back, warning him not to touch its core. Narumi evades this counterattack, leaping back and positioning himself behind his adversary. He informs Haruto that the strike to the chest didn't yield results, so he attempted to apply pressure to the vertebrae. Following this, the ominous void seems to calm down. Haruto asks if that's why the big guy barely moved earlier in the morning. Narumi confirms this and explains that it allowed him to enjoy a restful sleep. Haruto recalls hearing about a clan rumored to possess expertise in pressure point techniques known as the Shadows, a group of assassins with centuries of history. There's a belief that once they target someone, escape becomes impossible. Could this individual be a member of the Shadows? Narumi applauds and affirms that it seems likely he is. He's already familiar with Narumi tactics. Haruto is about to express his astonishment at Narumi knowing his name, but Narumi cuts him off, revealing that Jankai is an organization that unites the world's top assassins. Among them are the most formidable, known by the names Blue Dragon, White Tiger, Red Bird, and Black Tortoise. So he's the Blue Dragon, isn't he? Assassins of his caliber don't typically fall into the hands of law enforcement so easily, and his presence here implies he's on a mission that can only be completed in this realm, right? Haruto is taken aback by Narumi's extensive knowledge, but conceals his surprise. He claims he doesn't understand what Narumi is talking about at all. Narumi nonchalantly remarks that he doesn't care about Haruto's mission for being here. Haruto asks what his true purpose is then. Narumi departs, stating the answer is evident. He's here to prove himself as the strongest. By defeating Haruto, who is currently recognized as the strongest, he will claim that title for himself, right? After all, even though he's known as the Blue Dragon now, he's just Haruto Hagami, right? Haruto recollects the events that transpired earlier. A girl offers him a cigarette, hands him a sheet of paper, and identifies him as the Blue Dragon. She provides him with information pertinent to his mission, stressing the importance of reading it carefully to prevent leaks. Initially, he is to surrender to the police, and from there, she will handle everything. She mentions that this time, their paths may diverge. Haruto considers her words, and she clarifies that they've joined forces to dismantle the Phoenix Society. If they succeed, there won't be any more missions. However, if he fails, it will be his last mission. Sometime later, the system announces that a new game is about to commence, and asks if he wants to purchase new equipment before entering. Haruto declines, stating he only needs cigarettes and a lighter, just like last time. The system confirms his request. Haruto remains vigilant,